Can you speak on the importance of the husband slash fathers leading the spiritual life at home and in church? The problem with women leading? Let's see what this says. Oh, even when the men don't? So, the men are lazy. Men are much more lazy. They're not supposed to be. Our culture's done that to them. So you see in the culture today, women don't want to be feminine, and men don't want to be masculine. And the reason being is because women have been taught, and this, especially for you young ladies, be aware of what I'm speaking of, because it's probably affecting you right now. In America, it's bad. Women are taught, young ladies are taught, that femininity is weakness. And it is. But not the kind of weakness that they're thinking of. It's weakness in the sense that it's not the strength of masculinity. But masculinity is only half of man. Remember, yesterday I said, God created them male and female, and He called them man. Now, what the culture is doing today is it's pitting men against women. Everything that's feminine is considered weak and unneeded. Women are equal. Women can do it. Women this, women that. The fact is this. Men primarily function from an objective standpoint that's rational. More rational. Because obviously humans are rational. Women typically, now this is all typical stuff, women typically function from emotion. One, because their bodies are built that way. There's just a lot going on with the chemical stuff that's going on in the body. God made woman that way. Then also from sentiment. And that's why women can be much more irrational in the sense of emotional. The emotional, the sentimental. And so that's looked at now in the culture as weakness. That's why in the military, when you get women in the military, they just love to cuss. And everyone tells me, anyone that's been in the military, the women drill instructors that are being drill instructors for men, they have, their mouths are fouler than all the men. And they're harder to deal with than anybody else because they have to try to prove themselves to be like a man. Do you see? But that's a distortion. That lady's become a monster. See, what's happening here is since we're getting rid of the feminine because we only want the masculine, and women want to be masculine, then the women become distorted. And we lose half of man. It's important that there's objectivity in one of them. It's important that there's sentimentality and emotion in the other. You ever watched, I'm sure a lot of you have, you watch the husband when the little children are at that age where they don't say anything, they're just practicing talking. You're walking along and they're saying stuff that don't make any sense at all. You watch the mother and she will just keep talking to the child. The child says something that makes no sense at all and the mother says something back as though it made sense. You watch the father and the child says something that doesn't make any sense and the dad's just walking the child, looking straight ahead going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the kid's talking about. He's talking about blue yellow jackets that are flying helicopters. It doesn't make any sense. But the mom would be like, oh, that's interesting. What did you see? Where did you see that at? What did happen there? And oh, that's beautiful. But that's important because if not, the child doesn't learn how to talk. Right? So you see, if everybody was like the man, the kids would grow up like zombies. But yet, the wife oftentimes can come to conclusions that aren't really based completely on reality because she's dealing with a lot of emotion. She's piecing things together based on the emotion, based on the sentimentality, based on other things that have happened. And in the end, she's really upset. There's all this. And so she comes to the husband, says all these things. This is what's going on. I think we have to do this. And he says, no. It's okay. We'll do this. The wife's really mad because he doesn't understand. Well, the fact is he does understand. And the reason being is because God gave him just objectivity. And maybe he doesn't in that instance understand. But normally the goal is that the husband was given objectivity more thoroughly than a woman. Because it's not that a woman doesn't have objectivity. And then the woman is given basically all of the qualities needed to run the household. Which is actually, and nobody really likes this, they don't like to say this nowadays, is the more important role in the family. The woman's role is more important than the man's role because she forms the children. And that's why it's so important for the women to stay home with their children so the children are formed. If not, society goes crazy, as we can see. Do you see? And that's where the husband's role is protector. He's still head. He's head, he's protector, he's provider. He comes home from work to support, to provide, and to sort things out. Do you see? But the mother, the woman, she's there to raise, to nurture, to foster, to help. If you disrupt this order, you have chaos. And that's what they're trying to do to the young ladies. That's what they want to do to all you young ladies. They want you distorted. Put on the pants. Go to work. Make sure you go to college. You can take care of yourself. Well, yeah, you can do all those things, but is that what a woman's supposed to do? No, it's a distortion of her dignity. Now you might ask, why do women have to wear dresses and men don't have to wear dresses? Let's think about this for a minute. I have a habit on. We have women in our third order, and they go nuts saying, because we require our third order women to wear, now it is not a rule, I don't enforce rules with anybody, but I encourage them as their habit to wear dresses that go about down to their ankles, right? Then I started getting all these comments, oh, but you don't understand, Friar, it's hard, it's dangerous on the stairs, it's hard to work out in the garden, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm like, excuse me. I have something very similar that I wear, it's called a habit, and it weighs 15 pounds, right? It's made out of like army blankets. It's not really army blankets, but it's really thick wool. We wear it all the time. When I was in the Philippines, we had to catch fish on Fridays because we were on an island that didn't have cars or electricity or anything. So they had the locals come bring their boats, and we went out on the other side of the island, and we wanted to catch some fish because we didn't have fish to eat on Friday. We had plenty of rice, but we didn't have any fish. So they went out, and they would string out their nets, and we'd be on the beach, and our job was to swim out over the coral, which would rip you all to shreds. We had to swim out over the coral, hitting the water. That scares all the fish into the nets, because it's just a long wall of nets, right? So we had to swim out, hitting the water, then we'd get out there, and once we got out to the nets, we'd all have to dive down and get the fish from the nets, and then unhook the nets from the coral, which sometimes went pretty deep, and my ears couldn't take it, but some of those islanders could do it. Well, we did that in full habit, with the work cord and everything. Do you see? Why can't a woman go up and down the stairs? Now, you ladies who wear dresses, you know it's possible to wear dresses all the time. But a lot of people want to just come up with excuses today, and that's what your young daughters will do. They're all going to try to come up with excuses why they shouldn't. But you know what happens with women? And this is for you young people. Pay attention. This is the way it works with women. And this isn't against women. We're not bashing anybody here. We do have to identify. Men need to know who they are based on the fall of Adam and Eve, because it really affects them to this day. And you see it consistently through every man. If he doesn't fight against it, he becomes that slushy blob in the lazy boy chair in front of the TV. And a woman becomes the bossy lady running the house and everything else. But it all comes back from the fall. Read the fall, see what the curse, not the curses, but what the punishments were, see how it affected, meditate on it, and you'll see, you women, what you need to work on to go contrary to that. You men, what you have to work on to go contrary to that. Women are much more prone to do what other women do. And they know that. Why do you think when you go to the airport now, everybody has on skin-tight superhero pants? They wear the superhero pants. Whether they should be wearing the superhero pants, they shouldn't be wearing the superhero pants, that's the way they're dressed, right? It is absurd to see how women dress in the airport. Men still look ridiculous like they did before, but women look extremely ridiculous now because there's no rhyme or reason to how they're dressing. But it's all very immodest. How do you get women to do that? You know, when they first started this war against women in the early 1900s, they wanted to put women in bikinis. Bikinis were unheard of back then. So what they did was they went to Paris. This was in Paris, and they tried to get women from Paris to put on bikinis. But these women were the ladies that work in the streets, right? You know what those ladies do in the streets. Well, they tried to put bikinis on. They refused. They refused because they were so immodest. Can you imagine? These are ladies that work the streets. They wouldn't wear bikinis. They're going to get paid to go up and down these walkway things in a bikini. Wouldn't do it. So that's when they realized they had to start they started those fashion shows. And as they went through these fashion shows, why fashion shows? Let the ladies see what ladies are wearing. Then the ladies will start wearing those things. But they won't do it until other ladies wear it. That's why you won't find many young ladies who will wear a dress. And I hear this all the time. We have third order all over the world. And they call me and they say, what do I do when everybody's coming to me saying, why are you wearing a dress? It's like, what? Get off my back. I'm a lady. Why can't I wear a dress? Well, because everybody's wearing jeans and pants and superhero pants. And you're not wearing superhero pants. Why are you dressed in a dress all the time? You think it's wrong that I dress in a dress? See, it's a collective thing with ladies. It tends to be a collective thing. So with these fashion shows, what they started to do was they started taking the dresses up to mid-arm. Then fashion went up to mid-arm. Then they raised it to the elbow. And then all the fashion went up to the elbow. Then they took it halfway up the arm. And that's where fashion went. And then it came up. And then it came down. And then it came up. Then it got tight. And now it's just ridiculous. And everybody follows it. Do you see? Absolutely crazy. Do you want to be a part of that? You want to follow the trends? The thing is, everybody today thinks that they want to be individualistic, but all you're doing is following the crowd. Absolutely crazy. So husbands and fathers, I got to get back to the main point with the husbands and fathers. The reason, and this is, again, is because Adam, he should have disciplined his wife. People don't, I've gotten in trouble before for saying this, but that's just what would have happened. We all inherited original sin, which, think of the number of people who have gone to hell because of what Adam did. It wasn't Eve. It was what Adam did. If Adam would have said, by no means will I eat that woman, you do penance. You put that down and you do this. If she would have repented and done the penance, she would have been put back in a state of grace and we would have never fallen. Do you see? Think about that. It affects every single one of you. There are times, though I know it's difficult, because you husbands and you wives are equal in your dignity. You're equal in your dignity. There is hierarchy, but that you're equal in your dignity. And the husband knows that. He usually isn't a rule monger and like a authoritarian. You know, that usually isn't a problem today. It is a problem in some places. But normally the husband actually is afraid to exercise his authority because of what the backlash might be. So for the women, you should live in a way where your husband would be able to correct you if he needed to. It's a hard thing because you're equal. What do you mean? This guy, I know the buffoon he is. I know the buffoon he is, and he's going to correct me? Yeah. That's like in religious life, like we can have a superior. I don't get to pick him, and he might not be the sharpest cat ever, but if he corrects me, I'm grateful to God for it, because if he doesn't, what if I never correct these errors? So you women, it's a greater grace to be under authority than to be the authority, because you actually could be culpable for less. The husbands, you don't have anybody usually to correct you. And that can be a big danger. So with you all, it's to be very attentive to what's going on in the family. But to know that when you have to make a decision, you have to make a decision. And it's good to say, here's the thing. A king takes counsel with his counselors. And it would be a ridiculous thing for a husband in a family not to check in with his wife on what's going on in the family before he makes a decision. But when that decision's made, the husband has to make that decision and has to bear the weight of the decision before God. Do you see? So that carries over into everything else. Men have to be the head of the family, and I know it's hard for the men to do it because that came from Adam. You're not the only one that's lazy. You're not the only one that wants to not do the rosary because you're tired. But you have to see your role as father in the family and husband of the family. As leader, God's put you there to do what you have to do. It was beautiful what Father talked about yesterday. It was a very beautiful reflection, very, I thought, well balanced, the way he read that homily to us yesterday. So I encourage you to meditate and ponder that, you fathers. And don't get discouraged by the fact that you have failed. You've made your failures with your wives. You made your failures with your children. That's in the past. Your past doesn't really exist anymore. Now you have to be the dad you're supposed to be, even if it's humiliating at first to do it. All right? Take back your place. And women, you have to help with it. You have to help each other to do your roles properly.